Hello and welcome. Chef Pennington, Le Cordon Bleu trained chef and former fine dining chef here in Austin, Texas. Today is brisket day, one of my absolute favorite proteins on the entire planet, and we're gonna make it really good. We're gonna use a Texas dry rub. I'm gonna show you the way to do it that I like. I'm gonna give you the reasons behind it, and it's not like everyone else's. I guarantee you that. If this is your first time visiting, please subscribe and hit the bell so you know when we post new content. So I'm gonna start us off with taking a look at the brisket. There's two types of brisket, believe it or not. You can get the big piece, which is called the meat packer, and then the brisket is actually comprised of two cuts, two different muscles. And you have what most people are familiar with. It's called the flat. That's where you're going to get your extra lean, and it's usually about that thick. And then as you move your way down the brisket, you get to the thicker, fatter end. They call that the point, or they'll call that the extra moist or fatty. And that's my favorite part. That's where all the flavor is. So here's what the brisket looked like when I bought it at the store. And I brought it home and I trimmed it. You don't have to trim it, but you don't really want your guests biting into a piece of fat, just a big old piece. So I went in and removed all the different pieces that I didn't want. And you want to leave a little fat. You don't want to cut it all away. Okay, so that's the brisket. That's important. Use what you like. The cooking process is not going to change from one to the other. And you're going to like the cooking process. We're going to get that in just a moment. So the brisket needs some help. We're going to use a Texas dry rub. What makes it Texas? Well, we like to keep it kind of simple. I'm a chef, so I'm using a lot of our Southwest flavors that are very popular and dear to my heart. And I'm going to show you one that's pretty cool you may have never seen before. So I'm going to get the brisket, pop it into the bag. Just going to make it easy. You could do this the night before. You could do this maybe even an hour or two beforehand. We're just going to give the dry rub a chance to help the meat out, give it some love. Okay, so let's do this real quick. Make sure you guys can see everything overhead. All right, we got the brisket here in the bag. Let's start adding some beautiful flavor. I like to start with the salt because that is a pretty important ingredient. It gets overlooked. So I've got some sea salt here. This is 1 tablespoon. This is a very, very cool ingredient right here. This is Chihuahua smoked salt. Oops, it sets up a little bit. It's wonderful. It has that beautiful smoky flavors you want. We're doing brisket. We're not going to be using a barbecue pit. So this is a great way to add flavor here. So I've got 1.5 tablespoons right here. Now this is a large piece of meat, and that's why we're going to use some real salt. We don't want our brisket to taste like nothing. Coarse black pepper, 1 tablespoon. This is New Mexico chili powder. I'll have links for you guys if you can't find this stuff locally. We can source it, give you a little heads up. This is this one's San Antonio dark chili powder. I freaking love this stuff. This stuff is amazing. I'm using just tablespoons here. It keeps it really easy, really simple, except for this one. So this is smoked paprika. It's the hot. So it's got a little extra spice. I'm going to use just 2 teaspoons of this, heaping teaspoons. Some coriander, which is a fresh element, almost has a little bit of a citrus note to it. So you can see it's 1 teaspoon, but a fat one. Get that in there. 1 teaspoon granulated garlic. 1 teaspoon granulated onion powder. This is herbes de Provence. This has like thyme, rosemary, marjoram, oregano in it. Oregano and beef are really good friends. So we're just going to use 2 teaspoons of that. This is a teaspoon of red chili flakes. You can leave that off if you don't like spicy stuff. Forget anything? All right, here's the really interesting ingredient. This for me is not usually something I include in my dry rubs or beef, you might say, but on a brisket, I do like this little bit of sweet. This is Turbinado Sugar. So I'm going to use a full, this is actually weighed out. This is measured out. This is 2 tablespoons. So that little bit of sweet, believe it or not, is really nice, and I promise you're going to like it. So all we got to do is close the bag. You want to leave you don't want to take all the air out yet, because we want to be able to do this, and I'll season this up real quick. See how nice the bag does with the seasoning? It gets it everywhere. It's perfect, one and done. So this is going into the refrigerator for about at least 2 hours, I'd say. Night before works great. If you're in a pinch, you could season it and put it right in the Instant Pot and get going. So we got our meat seasoned. This is going to go in the refrigerator, and I'm going to move over into Studio A, and let's get cooking. Okay, safety first. Make sure that the plastic O-ring is inserted in your lid. Very, very important. It could easily be missed. Okay, we're using a technique called pressurized brazing. Most people that do Instant Pot stuff put a very small amount of liquid in there or stock, and I'm the other way around. I like using higher amounts, and it creates more of like, in this case, more like pot roast. We like tenderness, right? If you use a small amount of water or stock, it's like steaming, not as cool. If you guys would like to try to make your own beef stock, I have a fantastic recipe and all the steps, everything you need to do. I learned it in culinary school. Link will be below, and one for chicken stock. So at this point, before you add the liquid, you could sear off your meat with a little bit of oil. I highly encourage that. The way that I trim my brisket and the fat I cut off, the shape wasn't really perfect for searing it off. I'm putting a little bit of lard in there. It's adding more flavor. You guys certainly don't have to. I like adding a stick of butter more times than not, which is just wonderful flavor. Give it a try. I promise it'll be great. Just keep it simple. Make sure you're on sealing, very important. Now let's set the settings. We are going to use the pressure cook option. We're going to set the timer for 1 hour and 15 minutes. If you have a small brisket, you can set it for 1 hour. And we're going to use normal temperature. Those three things in the area are temperature settings, and we're going to be on high pressure versus the low pressure. It's going to switch to on. It's going to cook. The timer is going to go all the way down. And once that happens, we're going to switch it over to venting. And we're going to watch this little pin right here drop back in. Once it drops back in, that means it's safe to open the Instant Pot. All the fears are gone. A lot of people are scared of pressure cookers. Well, that's the thing. Once that drops, you're totally good. And now we have brisket. Look how easy this knife goes in and out. Easy peasy. And what we have is delicious brisket. Let's take a little cut in, take a look at it. Wow, we don't need a knife. Who needs a knife? This thing's tender. 180 frames per second. So we're going super slow here just so you can see all the deliciousness as it easily pulls apart. I mean, tenderness, perfection, so easy. Hope you all enjoyed. We're going to have a link below, all the instructions, everything you need for the Instant Pot and also to make your own beef stock, chicken stock. We'd love to have you join us on social media. I'm Chef Pennington, and thanks for watching.